Hey everybody, this video is part of our full-length The Onside Kick podcast. You can find that on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes. You can pretty much find it anywhere, so we don't care where you listen. Just stick around and check it out.
This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
Dub them ease.
And what you guys can't tell, this is the Onside Kick podcast here on Most Valuable Podcasts, but you guys can't tell, this is the fourth time we're doing this.
Yep.
Fourth time because I can't get my stuff together. If you're on YouTube, great to see you. Hello. If you're on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, or Stitcher, thank you guys for giving us a listen. Thank you for giving us the download. But Mark, I'm going to do it again because I did it once before. I finally got my invitation to your wedding.
Yep, hand delivered.
You told me that, hey, I'm a groomsman. Now I have the invitation, so I know I'm officially invited, and you're not going to pull the wool over my head at the last minute.
There's still time.
There is still time. There is definitely still time, as we got a jam-packed show today. We're talking about the NFC South, and can the Buccaneers dethrone the rise-up Atlanta Falcons as the division winners down in the NFC South? Then we're going to go and take a look at some of the rookies that we've talked about. Who's going to be the big impact rookies year one for their team as a rookie? And then kind of a fun topic, a little top 5 wide receivers coming into 2017. Who are going to be the top 5s when we get to the end of the season? We'll end the podcast with that. But let's get right into it. We got the Buccaneers, we got the Falcons, and I will ask you this question first before we get into the Bucs, just looking at the Falcons. Are they going to be a one-hit wonder this year? Should we be worried that, hey, the trend that we have in the NFC South of revolving door at the top, should we be worried about that and then suspect the Bucs to maybe take that throne?
I actually think that the Atlanta Falcons will probably still win their division. I don't think they're going to be the only team from the South that are in the playoffs. I definitely think the Bucs have a great chance of getting in the playoffs. It's going to be a tough competition, though, of course, because of the Carolina Panthers. I think they're going to be back this year. Not as much as they were when they went to the Super Bowl, but they will be back.
They don't have Josh Norman.
Yeah, they'll be back and ready to fight with the Bucs. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a tough battle. The Atlanta Falcons are not going to be as good as they were last year. And what we're going to still have to wait and see is with Sarkisian coming in as the new offensive coordinator, how does that affect things? Is that run game in Atlanta good enough to do what Sarkisian wants that run game to do? They're going to change it up a little bit. It's not going to be, I don't expect guys, like Julio Jones to put up the same numbers that they were able to put up before. I definitely expect to see, like a running backs getting more involved in the pass games, use those tight ends, quick screens. This is kind of more of what you expect out of Sarkisian, and maybe he'll surprise us. But I don't know. Until I see the Falcons play under him, I can't say how good or how much things are going to change.
Well, and that's the big question mark with the Falcons heading into this season. Is Kyle Shanahan no longer there? And it's one of those things where you look at it and go, are we going to tie Julio Jones like you did? Are we going to tie Julio Jones' success last season to Kyle Shanahan? And I think there is a fraction that you say, yes, there will be a little bit of a drop-off. Not as much, though, as
because
some
he's
may
still
think.
one of the best wide receivers either way.
And he's got one of the best quarterbacks in Matty Ice throwing him the football. And this Falcons team didn't lose a bunch on offense. They still got Matt Ryan there. They still got Deonta Freeman. They still got Tevin Coleman. They still have their wide receivers in Jones and Sanu with Hardy and Gabriel behind them. The big thing is they've got Sarkisian coming in, and how is his offense going to differ? Because the only reason why we're really making a big deal about this is Sark coming from the college game to the NFL game. He was recently with Alabama, which some people may say, well, Ricky, that's like being at Kentucky in basketball. You're basically coming from an NFL team at that point.
But they're known for defense and power running, essentially, is what they really do.
And really, he was only the offensive coordinator at Alabama for about a game. After Lane Kiffin took that job at FAU, he was a consultant, and then he became the offensive coordinator when he left. I don't think Atlanta loses a beat on offense with Sark. It might take a little bit in camp and in the offseason and maybe like week 1, week 2 to learn the lingo of his system. But I think that once we get to the middle of the season, this is going to be one of the biggest division races that we look for. But I don't think Atlanta wins it just right out.
No, I don't think they'll win it right out either. But I still think there's going to be some transition period, of course. But I think that it's just maybe what they're going to want to do that's different. I mean, pretty much, I think they were the leaders for play action last year. And that helps out not only the passing game, but the running game. And I don't think that that's going to be the same thing. You kind of expect probably to see a little bit more of hope for power running, and that's not exactly what you expect out of the Falcons. And hopefully it's one of those things where you come in and you say, all right, well, I got one of the best quarterbacks. I got one of the best wide receivers. I'm going to utilize that. Hopefully you're not going to take things away from them, but it all kind of depends on how stubborn a coach is going to be to say, no, this is what we do here, and you guys are going to fit that now that I am here. I also think there was a lot of kind of turmoil in the past for Sarkisian, so you don't expect everything to... I mean, you just sit there and say, okay, let's see what's going to happen coming in. But at the same time, when you come into one of the better rosters in the NFL and a very young, talented roster, it's going to go pretty well, right? That's why I'm still saying Atlanta Falcons are probably still going to win their division. It's just that other people are competing as well.
See, and I'm on the other side. I totally think that if there's any team in this division, and now we're going to bring them into the discussion, if there is any team to kind of, I'm going to say, challenge the Atlanta Falcons for the divisional crown in the NFC South, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because I look at their team, and from personnel-wise on the player front, to me, they didn't have any huge losses that they have. They still have Jameis Winston coming back. They still have Doug Martin and Chris Sims and even Jaquiz Rodgers in the backfield. They still have the Mike Evans. Oh, wait. Who do they now have with Mike Evans, though?
O.J. Howard?
Deshaun Jackson.
Oh, well, I'm talking about
Deshaun Jackson, and they have O.J. Howard.
That's what I'm excited about.
And I'm glad you bring up O.J. Howard because, Deshaun Jackson, he gives, it's not just Mevins on this side. You now have a quality wide receiver on the other side that defenses have to keep honest for both. But really one of the big things when they drafted Austin Seraphin-Jenkins out of Washington, ASJ, he was going to be a big piece for this team. Obviously, it didn't work out. They got rid of him. Now they get O.J. Howard late in kind of that middle to late first round, which is I would look at it as a steal because there were some mock drafts having him in the top 5, top 10. So if you're getting that caliber talent of a guy down in the late teens, early 20s area, you're getting a steal for that price. Plus, he's a guy who can receive and block as well. So I expect the offense to be a little better under the Dirk Cotter kind of system that he has. They get the extension for Mike Smith, ex-Falcons coach, to be the DC again. And I look at their defense, not many losses on this defensive side. They still get Ayers. They still have Golson. They still have McCoy. This is going to be a team where they keep the core of their guys together. And the main thing, they're just getting another year older.
Yeah.
And the big position that, to me, that works with is Jameis Winston. And he is going to be the key to all of this for the Buccaneers because if he can mature that one step up, he can challenge the Falcons for the crown in the NFC South.
Yeah, and what really we need to see is I hate to say the next step for Jameis Winston because he's impressed every opportunity he's really had so far. He's definitely been very successful, but can he take another step forward? Can he continue leading this team? Having Mevins there and, can the passing game get even better? Because passing game was definitely good, but it was, fairly middle of the pack when you start looking at some of the statistics. And honestly, a big part of that is going to be having the lack of number 2 out there. So you look for this to go forward, running game to go forward. The defense was definitely something you're pretty happy about. But like you were saying before, it's all about, all right, we have another year here. Let's move forward again. So this whole team is just this question of how does next year look? Because if it's a step forward, then you're looking at a team that's going to the playoffs. If it's the same or less, they're probably missing it once again.
And here's the big, I'm going to give a similarity to both the Falcons and the Buccaneers, but in this similarity, the Bucs are the ones that I think are going to come out on top from it. And just like we mentioned with Sarkisian, coming from the college game of his last year. So last year was in college, now he's in the pros. Offensive coordinator and wide receiver coach for the Bucs in Todd Monken. He was a guy last year for the last 3 years of his career. He was the head coach at Southern Miss. Head coach in college, now he's coming over to the pros, and he's not just the offensive coordinator. Like I said, he's the receivers coach as well. Here's the big difference, though, and this is why I think the Bucs are going to benefit from this side. Not all the pressure is going to be on Monken, because when you look at Dirk Cotter, is he an offensive or a defensive-minded guy? He's an offensive-minded guy. That's why they got rid of Lovie Smith, so Cotter could take over the reins and work with Jameis Winston. Whereas you look at the side for the Falcons, their head coach is not an offensive guy. He's a defensive guy, so you're not going to have that same kind of, I don't want to say crutch to lean on, but the head coach for the Falcons, defense, head coach for the Bucs, offense. So I look at that. Yes, they have the same similarity, but the Bucs have that guy who it's really the head coach going, no, I know what the offense should be doing.
I just think for any team in this division right now, you're looking at the team that scored more points than anybody, who have one of the best passing attacks, throwing almost 300 yards a game, then having 120-plus yards a game.
Was that all Kyle Shanahan?
I can't say you can't give it all to Kyle Shanahan, but you certainly say
to him. I know it wasn't Dan Quinn.
There's some good stuff coming out of him for sure. But you have these great players. You have Freeman out there, who's a monster at running back. You have Julio Jones and the Matt Ryan connection. You're really excited to have all this again. Because you just saw how good it could be. Unfortunately, things didn't go the way you wanted when it really counted at the end.
25-point lead?
24, right?
Sorry, I had to throw that in there. Sean would have got mad at me. Sorry, Falcon fans. I love you guys. But, yeah, and the thing for me is both these teams, the good thing for both of them, not a lot changes. There's not any sweeping changes that happened with either of these teams. And a team that you mentioned.
Well, I would say offensive and defensive coordinators.
I'm talking players.
Are changes.
I'm talking player person. Like on the player side, it wasn't like the Bucs lost Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Or the Matt Ryan, he left. Julio Jones, he's gone. Nothing like that happened. The coaching is the only big spot in both of them, getting a replacing of their offensive coordinators, but a third team that we kind of have to mention because you brought them up because you kind of can't keep them out, even though I kind of think they are the odd man out when it comes to the NFC South this year.
Yeah.
Carolina Panthers. Are they going to be able to step back into the room and regain their title? Because we know that the Saints are probably going to be in the cellar again. I'm sorry, New Orleans.
Yeah, and it's not someone like Drew Brees' fault, and you feel bad for
Max
Drew Brees.
Unger just had a foot injury recently. He's going to miss the beginning of the season.
At least, hopefully, that's just a couple games. But I look at the Panthers, and obviously Christian McCaffrey is a huge addition. And then we talked about it last podcast with wide receiver who were not sold on in the second round here, but it's something, and that's what a big issue for the Panthers have been is that wide receiver position going to get better? Cam Newton had a rough season last year, mostly from the abuse standpoint. This running game was not just as good, but it was a really good run game. The passing game wasn't as good as it could have been. Defense didn't go as well as it should have went, but they were still doing pretty well, scoring points. They were getting the run game going. Cam Newton, when he could get something going, looked fine. It's just can they get back? And unfortunately, that defense is not going to be the same as it was when they went to a Super Bowl. We know that for sure. It's more of a question of, can Cam Newton get this offense moving the way it used to when they went to a Super Bowl?
And they got a new shiny toy, just like the Bucs got O.J. Howard. They have Christian McCaffrey now and his speed in the backfield.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
The thing that I want to look at kind of to end this and back with the Bucs and the Falcons, to me it comes down to the schedules. And these two teams playing similar opponents, but in the different games, I think it's going to be interesting to see what these teams do because they both have to play the division, obviously. So that to me is number one. When it comes to, because right now, I'm going to say it, I think the Falcons and the Bucs split. They're two meetings. I think I'm going to give the Bucs their home game. I'm going to give the Falcons their home game. Could be vice versa, but they'll split their meetings. After that, the first thing you look at, how are they going to play against the Panthers and the Saints? I think both of them could get sweeps over the Saints, even though I wouldn't be surprised with a split. The Panthers are the big one. I think that the Falcons can sweep the Panthers. The Bucs are going to be the team that I look to of, can you match the Falcons and sweep the Panthers as well? Then after that, I look at one of the divisions that they're going to have to play, the NFC North. The Bears, I think that they both can beat the Bears. Sorry, Mark.
Hey, no, Bears going 16-0. I don't know what you're talking about.
The Vikings, I think the Falcons can beat the Vikings. The Bucs, because it's in Minnesota and it's week 3, could be a tough game.
Sam Bradford will be there no matter what.
Sam Bradford will be there. I mean, he played all 16 games last year.
He did, but injury still. We know for a fact he will be there in week 3.
Hey, man, my bold prediction of he will start all 16 games was true. I was very proud of that. But it comes down to the Packers and the Lions. I don't think in Lambeau right now, I don't know if I'm confident enough to give the Bucs that. The Falcons, on the other hand, they play Green Bay week 2 at home, but then Detroit's kind of that wild card team.
Yeah,
they're
we'll
good enough to beat both teams. I just don't know which way I want to put it. Then the last thing I look at is the other division, the AFC East, they got to play. The Patriots beat both of these teams. I think both of these teams can beat all the other 3 teams in the East. The only question is Miami. The Bucs get them week 1 in Miami. The Falcons will get them week 6 at home. So it's one of those things of how you're going to do there. And then the last thing I look at just for the Falcons, and this is the last thing I'll mention, they got a rough 2-game skid for me. Week 10, they're at home against Dallas, and that's going to be a 4:25 game on Fox. Then they play that Monday in Seattle. That's two tough games that the Bucs don't have.
They have a potential really dangerous slide at the end of this season. Going against, who knows how the Panthers are going to do.
But then Dallas,
Seattle, then Bucs, that's a divisional game. If the Vikings are good like they can be, and then you got to play the Saints, which who knows, you're going to play them twice, you're going to play the Bucs again. It's a dangerous, if the Bucs are going hot, and the Vikings are good like some might think they will, there's a lot of losses that can happen for the Falcons at the end of this season.
And that's the thing, that it's kind of a similarity, but a difference in a little bit. If we look from week 12 on, the Bucs play both of their Atlanta games, because it's the same as Atlanta, but they have 4 divisional games, 2 at home, 2 away for the Bucs. The Falcons from week 12 on, they play the Bucs twice, the Saints twice, and the Panthers. So they have 5 of their 6 divisional games within week 12 to week 17.
Yeah, which division, it's always tough.
And that's one of those things where, late in the season, it's how did you do against the Green Bays, against the Detroits, against the New Englands, the Seattles, the Dallas for the Falcons, that I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm making a bold prediction. We have not had a bold prediction Monday on the podcast in quite some time. I'm booking it. I'm saying this year, NFC South Division champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are going to win the NFC South. There you go. flash forward to our predictions because you already got my NFC South prediction. So I'm going to go ahead and say it. Jameis Winston going to win the South. Any last thoughts on this before we move on?
No, I still have penciled in right now the Atlanta Falcons to win their division. I do think there's a very real chance that it's whoever won the head-to-head. I think that could be a big thing that decides which one of these guys go. It's a very real possibility that both teams are sitting at 10-6, 9-7. Right on top of the division, and it comes down to a tiebreaker for him. So don't be surprised to see that. Even though I totally believe, and we're going to talk about it soon, soon enough once we get to not this one, but the next topic, the last topic with the wide receivers, I fully believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense is going to be going balls to the walls. They're going to be Atlanta's offense just last season. I don't think Atlanta's offense is going anywhere, though. So this might be the hottest offensive football to watch next year in the NFC South, and no one is surprised by that if they've been paying attention in the offseason and the draft. But we got an arms race right now is really what it comes down to.
An arms race when it comes to these quarterbacks, because you have all four quarterbacks in the NFC South know how to sling it, and the Saints, I will give you love later in the podcast. Don't worry about that. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know down below what you guys think. Can the Buccaneers kind of dethrone the Falcons in the NFC South? I almost said NFC South. The NFC South, the Falcons, what do you guys expect this year from your team without Kyle Shanahan? Let us know down below in the description.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And don't worry, there is plenty more where that came from. You guys can check it out right over here. Click that video, start watching it, and just stick around on Most Valuable Podcasts.